You're all so quiet already. It feels weird to shush you, but here we go. Start all over. But, What a wonderful, wonderful way to begin worship. Thank you, Angel. Good morning, everybody. My name is Reverend Emily Bruce. I'm the minister of this congregation. I want to welcome all of you here this morning. We're so happy to have you with us, whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us on Zoom. Hello, Zoom. We're very happy to have your presence here today. In a moment, Jane Ford's going to lead us in lighting our chalice, but I just have a couple announcements beforehand. First of all, as it says in your order of service, Amanda Pine was supposed to be our worship associate today. She's not feeling well, so send her wishes of healing and love. And thanks to Jane, who has stepped forward at the last minute to be our worship associate. Also, you may notice there's a beautiful new quilt hanging behind me. Thank you to Pauline Delar, who made this beautiful, lovely, wonderful thing. Yes. Yay. And if you look in your order of service, there's a whole description about the quilt, where the materials come from and its significance. It's beautiful, and we're so grateful to Pauline and so excited to hang it in our sanctuary this month. We are still accepting applications for the April slot for art in the meeting house. So if you're interested in that, see Joan Thompson Stein right here in the lovely green, if you have a piece of artwork you'd like to submit. Okay, a few more announcements, bear with me. First of all, a warrant went out via email yesterday to the entire congregation. We're going to be holding a congregational vote 2 weeks from today on Sunday, February 19th. And the topic of the warrant is whether to spend $6,500 to an accountant so that we may apply for the employee retention tax credit. It's all in the warrant. I'm not going to rehash right now everything that's in there, but it's a really important COVID relief program that the government is sponsoring that would be really good for us. So read all that. And if you have any questions, come talk to me and we'll talk about it. But so there's a Zoom next Sunday at 5 o'clock before the Super Bowl that you can attend if you've got questions. That's just an informational Zoom. And then the vote will be 2 weeks from today on the 19th after church. Yes, I got those details right. Okay. Our next contemplative worship service is coming up this coming Wednesday, February 8th, at 5:30 p.m. right here in the meeting house. And the theme for these services for the year is Find a Stillness. And the theme for this month's service is, Are you feeling lost? So come sit with us on Wednesday at 5:30 if you're feeling lost and want to feel lost with others. In a good way, in a good way. Next Sunday after church is our chocolate auction. So make sure you bring your credit cards and your checkbook and all your cash to buy all the chocolate that we're going to be auctioning off next week. Friday, February 17th is a games night, which is actually was on the calendar for the last Friday of January, but it didn't happen for multiple reasons. So we've rescheduled it for Friday, February 17th from 6 to 8. The kids have been making a bingo game in RE for us to play. So that'll be fun, but you're also welcome to bring any board games. We're going to order pizza. You can bring a dessert or a snack if you want. And we hope everybody will join us. Again, Friday, February 17th, 6 to 8 p.m. in the parish house. Two more. We are collecting non-perishable food donations for the Matthew Mission Food Pantry, which is based at the Taunton UU Church. We have enough drivers now to do the monthly deliveries through this year. We're overwhelmed with the number of people who want to deliver food every month. So that's great. But we can still bring the food. There's baskets in the foyer here and across the street. And if you're interested in potentially volunteering at the food pantry, come talk to Linda Loring, who's right there, because that might be something we do in the future. And finally, if you were here last Sunday, you may remember that we donated our plate to a local production of the Vagina Monologues, which was a fundraiser for domestic violence awareness in honor of Sarah Emmerich, who's a Kingston resident who was killed by her husband last October on Elm Street. And I'm very happy, not happy about that, of course, but happy to announce that we raised $433 from our collection. So that's a big deal. And we're adding that to the $150 from the Social Justice Committee to sponsor the production at its highest level, actually above its highest level. So I'm really proud of us for doing that. And the production, that level of sponsorship gives us 4 free tickets to the show. So if you would like to see the show and the cost of a ticket might be a barrier to you, please come talk to me. We want to make sure those tickets go to people who can really use them. The rest of you, I encourage you to buy a ticket because I think a bunch of us are going. So, all right, that's it. That was a bit of a gauntlet. Not usually that many announcements. So I invite you now all to join me in taking a deep breath in and out. Get comfortable in your seat. If you're holding on to your phone, put it down, maybe silence it or turn it off. Get comfortable. If you feel any tension in your neck or your jaw, or your forehead, just try to release it. And join me in taking another deep breath in and out. This hour is for you, for rest, for contemplation, for prayer, for fellowship. So give yourself this time of rest as we have our worship together for the next hour. Jane will lead us in lighting our chalice.
Good morning. As many of you know, my name is Jane Ford. I'm on the worship committee and also a worship associate, and happy to be here unexpectedly this morning. This morning, we light our chalice with these words by Ben Soul. Let us hold a quiet moment together as our chalice is lit. As the wild wind bites, so does the still flame warm us. As the crackling cold air stops our breath, so does the radiant flame draw from us the words we need to give and receive. Words of greeting, words of comfort, words of solace, words to challenge our mind, and words to bring us to action. Let us gaze upon this, our common flame, so that we remember who we are and what we can do when we come together. I invite you now to rise in body and spirit for our opening hymn, number 1067, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden.
As we enter into a time of meditation and prayer, I invite you all to join me in singing side 1 of May Love Be Your Guide. There should be a little white card in your pew. Again, side 1. But that's okay, because we keep it lit together. Here's another candle. Thank you. Will you please join me in prayer? Spirit of life and love eternal, we rest this morning in holy gratitude for being present in time of worship, for the warmth of this community, for the warmer weather outside, and for the many named and unnamed blessings of this life. We seek to release the burdens on our hearts today, our cares and concerns for ourselves and our families and friends, the anxiety and grief that we might carry for those we love and for our world, and all other sorrows that slow our steps or quicken our heartbeats. May we know the relief of grace. May we forgive ourselves and each other for any slights or harms. May we know the peace of love that is forever offering itself to us. And may we seek to begin again in that love. We breathe into the peace of this moment here and now in this sacred space. We open our hearts in wonder as we honor the deep connections that we share with each other and our earth. Let us calm our bodies and our minds. And as we relax into this space that we make sacred, let us now take a few moments and be still together. Please join me in singing side 2 of May Love Be Your Guide.
This morning's reading is called Imbolc, and it's by Samuel Felderman. So the skies rumbled and the snows came, and everywhere down through the centuries of this gray night came women gathering to pray and to sink their hands into the dark earth. They gathered seeds and prepared them for planting. They meditated in icy darkness, and they celebrated the lambing of the first ewe to hasten spring. And when through the earth they felt the stirring, they sang songs encouraging the tiny seeds to grow. In the dark, wet soil, you can smell their work still. They are digging along beside us. Listen. The north wind carries their song across the snow. This Imbolc night, as the earth prepares for spring, wise women gather in circles to wait the promise of new life. And so do we, here, now, this year, and every year. Welcome, Imbolc. This is time for our offering. When we give, we say yes to something of value. In this congregation, we take up an offering each week to say yes to the values of our UU faith and yes to this beloved community. Please give as you are able. Today's offering will be gratefully received. Our offering anthem is The Blessing by Brendan Graham and David Downs.
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful. Good morning again, everybody. Congratulations for surviving the winter blast. You're all here. You all have all your digits still, I hope. I spent most of the last 2 days huddled up at home, and wasn't that fun? No. I realized something about myself yesterday. Since COVID lockdown time, I really cherish the ability to freely leave the house and feel safe. So the last 2 days of admittedly self-imposed hibernation is not fun for me. So my sermon today is about Brigid, the Irish goddess, saint, and mystic. This past Wednesday, February 1st, was Imbolc, which is the Gaelic festival that is the feast day of Saint Brigid. So I thought it was an ideal Sunday to talk about her and what she might have to teach us. She's also a big favorite of mine. I first encountered Brigid probably about 15 years ago when I was part of a spiritual women's circle that studied female mystics. And that experience alone, studying the female divine, the divine feminine as it's called, was really, really powerful for me. I had been raised, like some of you, no doubt, in a church with the image of a very patriarchal, very male God. I know there's some former Catholics in here, so I know it's true for you, but maybe others. I wasn't Catholic, I was Episcopalian, which is like Catholic light, but still. So that image, that, very stern, demanding, judgmental Father God led to my picturing him as forbidding and scary. Not someone I would go to for help, but someone I had to make sure I did right by. You know what I mean? And as I said, I wasn't Catholic, so I didn't have Mother Mary as like an intercessor to lean on to kind of soften that blow. So learning about the possibility of a divine female, well, that just blew my mind. And reimagining God as female, and also really expanding the idea of God to being like a single figure to a divine energy, and a divine energy that could be female, was really cool. So we studied a bunch of female mystics and really studied how the divine showed up in each of them, that divine female energy. So, and of all of those, Brigid was the most captivating, because Brigid's also part of my ancestry. I'm a quarter Scottish and a quarter English, as far as I know. I know I'm a quarter Scottish. They say I'm a quarter English too. So those Gaelic traditions are actually my traditions in part. This is part of my ancient culture. The blood of my Gaelic ancestors runs in my veins. And most white people actually in America struggle to have a sense of culture, a sense of lineage. Many say that's why some white people are so eager to co-opt the culture of others, because we're so far removed from our own anymore. American culture as American culture can be kind of bland. And we've lost a lot of white people have lost their roots with their Celtic heritage, their Germanic heritage, what have you. So this realization made the discovery of Brigid for me that much more compelling. What could I learn from her? What kind of myths and stories about the ancient people might help me and guide my life? So, and finally, the third and final reason why I found Brigid so compelling is the strong belief that there is no one way or one religion that's right. You know, there's so many connections and interweavings of faith traditions through time, and some stand on the shoulders of other religions that have preceded them. And so through my own curious wanderings and learnings through faith traditions, I've really been able to abandon this desire to find the right way or the right answer, you know, and even the desire to know that there is a right way or a right answer, and learn from the interplay of all these different faith traditions. The way Brigid is a pre-Christian Celtic goddess and a Christian saint is a perfect example of how these traditions interweave. So you can get caught up in a lot of religious arguments about who's right and who's wrong, and I don't really want to have anything to do with that. Not surprisingly, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, because the interweaving for me is where it actually gets interesting. So wherever you are on your spectrum of belief, and I know we have a pretty broad spectrum here, I think there's some things that Brigid can teach us that may guide us in our world today. So first, I want to give you a little bit of history and context. And the first thing to know is this: there's debate among scholars as to whether she even actually existed. Brigid, as you will learn, wanders a bit freely between myth and history. It all depends on who you're talking to. And you can learn all different kinds of stories about her. She's legendary, she's fascinating, and the facts are pretty murky. Those who believe she existed says she was born in 452 AD, which is right around the time Christianity entered Ireland. So though many claim her to be a pre-Christian Celtic goddess, there are many stories that interweave her with Christianity, and some say that only when Christianity embraced her as a saint did the pre-Christian goddess Brigid really come into existence. One of the many qualities about Brigid that's so important is that she stands at the thresholds. It is said that she was born as her mother crossed the threshold into their home. And so she is forever held up as existing in the in-between, in the liminal space, as a guardian and protector through the changing states of nature and the changing states of our lives from birth to death. She's always on the threshold. And one of that most important thresholds is that between winter and spring. So Imbolc, the Gaelic festival, celebrates the earth's beginning, its turn from winter to spring. The ancient Celts believed that Imbolc actually divided winter in half. The harshest and darkest months of winter were behind them, and the promise of spring was right around the corner. And this is important to know because try to imagine life in the life and death struggle, I should say, of winter in an ancient agrarian society. Think about that for a second. There's no central heating, no electricity, no Cumbies down the street that you can run to for coffee or milk. You had to grow your own food, and in the warmer months, you prepared for winter and you prayed that you would have enough food and enough fire to survive. Therefore, getting to the halfway point is pretty much a cause for celebration, right? That's what I would think. And the Celtic people paid incredible attention to the rhythms of the earth, because they had to. That was the only way they survived. So in late winter, the seeds, start stirring in the ground a little bit. The sheep start giving birth to baby lambs. The trees, their buds start to show a little more. They start to swell a little bit. All of these things were held sacred by the Celts as signs that the bounty of spring was on its way, that they had survived another winter, that the turning of the season would once again bring them abundance after a time of very deep scarcity. And the bounty of spring was personified in Brigid. Many, many stories exist about her legendary hospitality. In the book, St. Brigid of Ireland, the author Alice Curtain described her as someone who ministered to the poor with, quote, a habit of wildest bounty. Indeed, there are stories of when she was a child where she literally gave away everything her family owned to people, whoever needed it, and how upset her father was that she did that. And for the Celts, Indeed, the advent of spring was seen as Brigid lavishing all of her gifts on her people through the sprouting of plants and the baby lambs and the frozen water flowing freely again. She was worshipped as a guardian of fertility, of the fields and crops, of sheep and cows, human mothers even, because she was seen as a spiritual midwife. There's a story that she was the midwife present at the birth of Christ, and later that she was his foster mother, which I'm guessing is kind of like an ancient godmother. Again, that's interweaving again. And finally, Brigid's principal symbol is perpetual fire, illustrated in the image on the front of your order of service this morning. One of her earliest biographers, a monk named Cogitosus, said that she burned, quote, with the flame of inextinguishable faith. And her association with fire also has a lot of meanings. One of her ancient names is translated as fiery arrow, which symbolized her dedication to justice, especially for the poor and those who are struggling. She's a central figure in many heroic myths, especially those that involve like underworld quests and sacred kingship, which sounds very Lord of the Rings to me. But Tolkien was very informed by Celtic faith traditions. So she symbolizes the fire inspiration and creativity. She's the patron saint of blacksmiths, which also symbolizes creation through fire, like the earliest creation of the earth. And she's deeply associated with the fires of the hearth and of home and living within the rhythms of the world, the natural world. She has a monastery. This is my last factoid. She has a monastery at Kildare in Ireland that would burn a perpetual flame in honor of her until the 1600s, when Henry VIII swept through during the Protestant Reformation and abolished a lot of the monasteries. But then in 1993, it only took 500 years, the fire was relit by two Brigidine nuns, which I'm assuming means nuns of Brigid, who rebuilt the monastery in Kildare as a Celtic spiritual center. And it's still there today. And that fire still burns today. I'm going to go visit it sometime. So for many, Brigid's perpetual fire represents wisdom and justice, healing, and the hearth, all of which can be seen as qualities of the divine feminine, a deep connection to the land, to community, to birth and renewal, to the nourishment of all growing things, including children, and protection of the most vulnerable, the poor, the sick, and the young. It's no wonder I like her so much, huh? And Brigid also has a lot of parallels to indigenous ways of knowing the rhythms of the earth, the turning of the seasons, and seeing ourselves as intrinsically connected to and deeply interdependent with all living things. This is why I love her and love to read about her. And especially because many of those qualities feel a little scarce in our culture these days, don't they? I think so. Especially Brigid's habit of wildest bounty, right? We live in a culture of scarcity thinking, where there's too little to go around, so we have to hoard, we have to keep everything for ourselves, right? I'm not saying that that's what every one of you do, but we live in a world and a society that is built on the principles of scarcity. Not the knowledge of abundance, the idea that there's not enough to go around. So you have to keep everything you can and not share. But what Brigid asks me and what I ask all of you is, what if we shifted our thinking to a mindset of abundance? What would that look like? What if we weren't afraid of running out? Not because we have an endless supply of resources, which I know we don't, but rather, what if we could trust that we could get what we need? There's a key word in that sentence that is also not a big part of our culture today: trust. What would it take for us to start trusting that there will be enough? Brigid's generosity can be a lesson for all of us that there can be enough. We can find our way. We too will survive winter and see spring again, literally and metaphorically. Look at the clothing drive we did for the homeless and displaced people last fall. Look how quickly the community responded to a scarcity situation with an overwhelming abundance, right? How many bags of clothes did we get? 200, 300? What would it feel like to live in a culture that embraced that ideal, that we can each do our part to share our bounty so that others can be prompted to share their bounty with us? Now, I know you can't just go give all your stuff away like Brigid did. I'm not talking that literally, but it seems to me that a lot of the hysteria and acrimony and noise being generated in our culture today comes from the minds and mouths of those who have unwittingly embraced a scarcity mindset. That there is only so much to go around, that life is a competition for survival, survival of the fittest, and they claim that that's the way it is in nature, so that's the way it is for humans too. And yet, there's so much biological research coming out these days that says the natural world thrives on cooperation, not competition. That it was cooperation that led to the emergence of life at all, and cooperation has sustained millions of species thus far. So it seems the sharing of abundance, this habit of wildest bounty, has its roots in the natural world too, despite what we have been taught to believe. So we have a choice. We can agree with those who think with a scarcity mind. We can hoard our stuff and we can lock down in fear, or we can breathe and begin to trust that we will get what we need through the generosity and mutuality of our community of friends, families, and neighbors. Is this idealistic thinking? Yes, of course it is. Of course it is. But it is my hope that it plants seeds of thought. What would it look like for you to embrace a mindset of abundance? What would it mean for you to release anxiety about something, maybe just one thing, and trust that the need will be met, that the answer will arrive, that you will get your share of the bounty? Besides, does sitting here worrying about it actually help you? Does it change the outcome at all? Probably not. The reason I call on Brigid's wisdom, the reason I embrace her habit of wildest bounty, is because I think our culture is at a turning point. There is so much needed attention being paid to issues of justice and equity for women, for people of color, for the LGBTQ community, for the immigrant, for the underserved and the marginalized. And there is also attention being paid to those who say those issues, meaning those people, shouldn't matter, that it's everyone for themselves, that we don't have to be required to share, ever. We are standing on a threshold, and this is where Brigid can guide us, because she invites us to tend to that threshold, to pay attention to the change that is evolving within us and within our world. She accompanies us as we have the opportunity to move toward justice, to adopt a mindset of abundance, where all can be cared for and provided for. And doing so requires us to tend to our interpersonal thresholds too, the connections between us and other living things, our families, our friends, this community gathered here, and our natural world. How can that mindset of lavish bounty, I just love saying those words, lavish bounty, how can that mindset be shared with those around you, with the people you meet in your daily life? How can we resist the scarcity and the fear and embrace the abundance, which is love? How can we embrace that? In this month of love, which February is, where might Brigid be inviting you to share your wildest bounty? As we make our way through winter and look forward to the eventual arrival of spring, my prayer for all of you is that you consider embracing the ideal that there will be enough for all of us. May Brigid make it so. Amen. Please rise in body or in spirit to join us for our closing hymn, number 91, Mother of Us All. Folks, as we extinguish our chalice, may the power of Brigid inspire you and guide you so that you may go into this world with her lavish generosity and creative fire. May it be so. Go in peace.
Thank you.